Hello everyone, and a really warm welcome to our Connected Women webinar today. And I hope that you and your families are keeping well wherever you are in the world right now, joining us today. So today we're going to talk about how to address the mobile gender gap, the fact that women are much less likely than men to own and use mobile phones across low and middle income countries. And with the current COVID-19 pandemic going on, this has never been a more urgent issue to address. Mobile phones have become so important to so many of us over recent months in this period of lockdown and uncertainty, as a means of keeping in touch with our loved ones, finding out about the latest COVID news and advice, and continuing our business and economic activity as much as we can. So it's really tragic that women in these settings are missing out on mobile technology at the very point in time they perhaps need it most. So that's why I'm so delighted to be here today on behalf of the Connected Women team, sharing with you our top 10 recommendations for reaching women with mobile. So if you're a mobile operator today or another organisation that's reaching women with mobile handsets and services across low and middle income countries, then this webinar is for you. Or alternatively, if you're just very interested in this topic, it's great to have you here as well today. So what I'll do is I'll share the recommendations, and then at the end, I'll move to any questions you have. So please throughout, there's a Q&A box on the right. Please write your questions and feel free to ask them as we go along, and I'll come to them at the end. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Dominica Lindsay. I'm Senior Director on the Connected Women team and lead author of this report that we'll be going through today. So before we share the recommendations, I'd just like to give you a quick overview of what our Connected Women programme does for those that are not familiar with who we are. So here's a summary of what we do. We work to reduce the gender gap in mobile internet and mobile money across low and middle income countries, as you can see left here. Women are currently 20% less likely than men to use mobile internet in low and middle income countries, and 33% less likely to use mobile money. So we work to address these gaps and improve digital and financial inclusion for women. And we do that through three key ways, and these are in the middle column here. So firstly, our advocacy work, where we drive awareness and prioritisation of the mobile gender gap amongst our stakeholders. Secondly, our market engagement work, where we work closely with the mobile industry to have a real impact on the ground, helping them to ensure that their actions to reach women are both commercially sustainable and socially impactful. And then finally, our insights work, where we develop insights and thought leadership on the size of the gender gap, the reasons why there is a gender gap, and successful approaches to address it. And ultimately, we're trying to achieve what's on the right-hand side of the slide here. So firstly, increase women's access and use of mobile services across low and middle income countries, and helping to ensure that they reap the full benefits of mobile connectivity. Secondly, we're working to help the mobile industry grow, and we also recognise how connectivity is becoming a crucial enabler of economic activity worldwide. And finally, we're working towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. We believe that equipping women with mobile technology and all the opportunities it can bring, and particularly those women who are most marginalised, has the potential to help achieve many of the SDGs. And we're really proud that through the work of our programme over the last decade, we've supported our operator partners to reach 50 million additional women with mobile. And that's the reason for the title of our report that I'm sharing with you today. And there's a picture of it here, Reaching 50 Million Women with Mobile, a Practical Guide. So what is this report? Well, we set out to answer the question here on the right. How can mobile network operators reach female customers with mobile across low and middle income countries? And we've come up with 10 recommendations for how they can do this. And these are based on everything that we've learnt over the last decade of our programme through conducting research and work with operators and other partners across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And this also includes a recent operator survey, and we're very grateful to all those partners who have contributed to this collective knowledge, and also to Altai Consulting for conducting the research. This report is rich with case studies and examples of what operators are doing, and they aim to bring the recommendations to life, and I'll share some of these with you today. And overall, our 10 recommendations here are based on our experience working closely with mobile operators, but we also hope this guide will also be useful for other organisations who are offering mobile-related products and services for women in these settings, including, for example, the organisations listed here, other industry players, NGOs, the public sector, and the development community. So throughout the presentation today, I'll refer to mobile operators, but please bear in mind the relevance of many of these recommendations for other types of organisation as well. So here are our top 10 recommendations that we believe mobile operators should focus on to reach female customers in low and middle income countries. And whilst it's crucial to keep the unique local context in mind, these are the overarching recommendations that have emerged from our research and work across various countries over the last decade. And we've presented it in a summary framework approach, and it has 3 parts to it. We have recommendations related to your organisation, which is the top left box. Recommendations related to understanding the opportunity and challenge of reaching women, and that's the top right box. And then recommendations related to actually taking action, and that's the bottom box. The top left area of the framework is called Include a Focus on Female Customers at the organisational level. And the 2 recommendations here relate to ensuring the organisation is focused on reaching female customers and working collaboratively to do so, spearheaded by senior leadership. The 2 recommendations here are set gender targets that are endorsed and communicated by leadership, and nominate an appropriate department to champion reaching female customers and involve the wider organisation. And we'll look at each of these recommendations later in a bit more detail, plus the others on this slide. The top right area of the framework is called Understand the Opportunity and Challenge of Reaching Women. And the 3 recommendations here involve using gender disaggregated data and research to properly understand both the opportunity and challenge of reaching women in your market with mobile. And the 3 recommendations here, as you can see, are first of all, get on top of your data, but don't let a lack of quality gender data prevent you from taking action. Understand both women's aspirations and challenges in your market, and establish the commercial opportunity from the outset at both an organisational and a project level. The final bottom area of the framework is called Take Action to Reach Women Through New or Existing Initiatives. And the 5 recommendations here are about actually taking action and ensuring your new and or existing initiative considers opportunities to reach women during all stages of design and go to market. The 5 recommendations here, as you can see, are ensure offerings holistically address women's barriers and aspirations in your market. Consider whether adapting your mainstream products could reach female customers effectively rather than developing female-specific ones. Proactively ensure your marketing and distribution tailored to reach women as well as men. Incorporate women in distribution activities to influence and onboard female customers. And consider using partners to extend your reach or bring complementary strengths. The aim of this framework is to serve as a practical guide to help operators and other organisations reach female customers with mobile. The top 2 areas of the framework, so the top 2 boxes, should ideally be addressed first. And this is because focusing on female customers at the organisational level, the top left box, and understanding the opportunity and challenge of reaching women, to the top right box, can help set the right precedent and inform the final area at the bottom, which focuses on tactical implementation. So, for example, if you look at recommendation number 8, this is about proactively ensuring your marketing and distribution are tailored to reach women as well as men. And we feel this will be more justifiable and straightforward to do if your senior leaders have endorsed it, so recommendation number 1, and if there is an understanding of local women's aspirations and challenges, so recommendation number 4. But it's important to say that operators shouldn't wait to achieve perfection in the top 2 areas of the framework before starting on the bottom area, which actually relates to taking action. We know, for instance, that many operators are successfully reaching women despite a lack of quality gender disaggregated data, so recommendation number 4, for example. And we'll now go through each of these recommendations in turn. So the first one, well, before you start on a journey to reach women, it's really important, helpful to plan where you want to get to. So we recommend by starting out, setting a tangible numeric target for reaching female customers. And this helps align, focus, and inspire the different parts of the organisation around a concrete ambition. And it's even more impactful if this target is endorsed and communicated by senior leaders. And we believe that senior buy-in is really crucial for an organisation to reach female customers successfully. When senior leaders champion reaching women, especially publicly, we've seen how employees often feel inspired and empowered to dedicate their time and resource to the opportunity, and also to work collaboratively across departments. An example of how a numeric target with senior endorsement real difference is our Connected Women Commitment Initiative. And since this launched in 2016, 39 operators across low and middle income countries have made formal public commitments to reach women. And they submit a commitment letter to us, and this is signed by the CEO. And this states the target percent of women that they aim to have in their customer base by a certain date. And then the operator takes action to try and achieve their target, and we support them. And we've had really positive feedback from our operator partners on how making a commitment has been really influential in helping them to increase their focus on women. We've also found that if operators link targets to reach women with existing targets and strategy, they are more likely to be easily integrated and taken up by the organisation, and therefore more likely to be impactful. And to give you an example of this, MTN in Ghana is one of our operator commitment partners. And before making a commitment, they already had an organisational goal to accelerate merchant payments in the country for both men and women. So making a commitment to increase the proportion of female mobile money users in their customer base was a natural fit for them, particularly because in the open markets in Ghana, the majority of the buyers and sellers are actually women. So what about the organisational setup? What kind of organisational setup is most impactful when it comes to reaching? And this is a bit of a tricky one to answer because mobile operators vary tremendously in their size and their structure and their context, but we do have a few findings which I'll share with you here. So first of all, operators that have been successful at reaching women typically have one department that champions this opportunity and involves others across the organisation as appropriate. And this department is usually a commercial one, typically marketing or products, as targeting women tends to fit with their existing departmental objectives. If this department is not a commercial department, for instance, a CSR, a corporate affairs department, or a sustainability team, we've found that involving the commercial side of the business from the beginning can help to amplify the impact and longevity of activities to reach women. An alternative setup would be a formal cross-functional team focused on targeting women. And this is actually quite rare among operators and is not a prerequisite for reaching women successfully. But it might be even more beneficial than having a champion department that involves the rest of the organisation on a more ad hoc, informal basis. Whichever setup is chosen, we feel it's really important that departments across the business collaborate with each other, since ensuring that operators reach female customers as well as male customers impacts most business activities, including, for instance, product design, marketing, distributions, and also operational teams such as business reporting. Collaboration can also be encouraged by taking the company's vision of reaching female customers and translating this into individual KPIs for staff across the organisation. This next recommendation is about the importance of operators analysing their data by gender. So why is this important to do? Well, gender disaggregated data can help operators understand how women are using their mobile services and offerings differently to men. And this helps to reveal the opportunities and challenges of reaching women and course correct if actions are not currently reaching female customers as much as male customers. And these insights are particularly impactful if the data is also split by other demographics such as age and location and so on. But unfortunately, operators don't always have access to robust gender data, and there are a number of reasons for this. One reason is that in many settings, men often purchase and register mobile products and services on behalf of their wives and daughters. In Bangladesh, for instance, our research revealed that 78% of Robbie Axiata's female subscribers were actually registered in their system as male. And even when gender data does exist, it can be underused. For instance, many operators have internal data on brand tracker surveys that has not ever been analysed with a gender lens. We recommend operators review the gender data they already have and decide whether or not it might be worth analysing it further to potentially uncover new opportunities to reach female customers. And as well as ensuring that existing gender data is fully utilised, operators can also improve the underlying availability and accuracy of their gender data. And we've included some ideas for this on the slide here. So firstly, strengthen the collection of gender data during the registration process. And also use customer call centres to document gender and also existing surveys. And finally, use machine learning tools. These can estimate a customer's gender based on call patterns and other behaviour of a sample of customers where the gender is known. And Robbie Axiata in Bangladesh, for example, used our machine learning algorithm known as GAIT, G-A-I-T, and they were able to predict the gender of their customers with over 80% accuracy. And this information helped them in a number of ways. For example, it helped them target women when they were marketing Joy Eater, their monthly smartphone bundle program. And it's important to take away from this that while robust gender disaggregated data is clearly very valuable, a lack of it should not prevent you from setting bold targets to reach women and taking action in the first place. Our operator survey revealed that setting a numeric target and committing to reach women, even when there are uncertainties about the quality of the underlying data, inspired operators to evaluate the opportunity and take tangible steps to reach women. This recommendation is understand both women's aspirations and challenges in your market. Operators are more likely to reach female customers if their efforts are based on an understanding of how women in their market access and use mobile services differently to men. Without these insights, their actions are likely to inadvertently reach more male customers. We've found, for instance, that standard mass market product launches and marketing approaches typically overlook women's nuanced needs, such as the fact that they're less likely than men in many settings to be literate or have confidence in their digital skills or have the opportunity to leave the home. And if operators have insights such as these, they can then explicitly consider women in their activities. We've found there are 5 common challenges across low and middle income countries that prevent women from accessing and using mobile technology. And these are listed on the slide here. So first of all, access. Women are less likely than men to have access to formal identification for registering for mobile services, less likely to have access to agents and also to handsets. Secondly, affordability. Women are less likely than men to earn an income or have autonomy over any income that they do earn. So they're therefore less likely to be able to afford handsets and data and transaction fees. This also means they're less likely to have internet-enabled handsets to use mobile internet. Thirdly, relevance. Women are less likely than men to think that mobile is relevant to their lives. Knowledge and skills. Women are less likely than men to be literate, have confidence in their digital skills, and have an awareness and understanding of mobile internet and mobile services more generally. And then finally, safety and security. Women are less likely than men to feel safe when using a mobile handset and mobile internet. And concerns here are things like handset theft, fraud, and also harassment over the mobile phone. And whilst these are the most important barriers we've found across markets, we feel it's important for you to establish if and how these manifest in your own market. You might, for instance, find that one or two are particularly important in your own context. And these barriers are also felt by both men and women, though women tend to experience them more than men, more acutely. And this is due to the structural inequalities in society. So things such as women having less access to education and being less likely to earn an income. So it's really important for operators to understand how women are different from men in their market, including not only the challenges when it comes to accessing mobile, so the things we've just talked about, but also their behaviour and their needs and their preferences and their desires and aspirations and how they are different. And indeed also the differences between different types of women, because they're not one homogeneous. So how can operators improve their understanding of women? We talked earlier about how operators can improve the availability of their internal gender data and the accuracy of it, but they can also undertake a number of other actions, such as the ones listed on this slide here. So firstly, invest in consumer insights research in your market. For example, Grameenphone in Bangladesh conducted in-house research on its mobile wallet app called GPay. They expected the app to appeal to women who are traditionally the bill payers in many Bangladeshi households, but their research found that lower digital literacy levels among women were preventing many of them from using the app. So based on these findings, they redesigned the app to make it more user-friendly, and this helped to increase the proportion of female customers from 12 to 19%. Combining consumer insights research with an analysis of internal data can also be very insightful. And we have an example of here from Côte d'Ivoire and Mali, where we supported operators by analysing their mobile money data together with some field research. And this revealed that the largest gender gaps were at the registration stage for mobile money and also among more advanced users. And this was due to quite a few reasons, including things such as women's lack of access to handsets or understanding of mobile money and perceived lack of need. Based on these findings, the operators went on to launch a mobile savings product aimed at women and partnered with ICT training centres for women to help better promote their mobile money products. Another action that operators can take to better understand the aspirations and challenges facing women in their market is interviews and also focus groups with their customer-facing staff. So staff in the call centres or the field sales teams tend to be naturally attuned to the views of customers, especially those specific to women, and they can often recommend revenue opportunities. And finally, there's a lot of freely available data and research out there from third parties, including at the country level. So I really encourage you to have a look at what's out there from organisations such as ITU, Findex, FII, Research ICT Africa, Learn Asia, and also our own GSMA Mobile Gender Gap Report series as well. This recommendation is about the commercial opportunity of reaching women, and we believe this is pretty significant. We estimate that closing the gender gap in mobile access and use could generate a mobile industry revenue uplift of 12 to 37% in a typical low and middle income market in Africa and 11 to 54% in Asia. So women aren't just a segment, they're half of the population and half of the potential market. And we think it's really important for operators to establish the commercial opportunity of reaching women from the beginning. We believe that if operators do not have a business case, the scale and sustainability of their resulting activities to reach women will be constrained. And ultimately, To succeed over the long term, operator initiatives to reach women need to be both commercially sustainable and socially impactful in terms of making a positive contribution to women's. Operators can think about the commercial opportunity of reaching women at both a broader organisational level and also at the project level. So firstly, at the organisational level, operators can quantify the degree to which reaching women will generate a financial return for them. And whilst operators are likely to have their own approach, we've found a crude yet very quick assessment can be to multiply ARPU, average revenue per user, by the difference in the number of men and women in the customer base. And this provides an estimate of the potential revenue opportunity of closing the gender gap in an operator's customer base, the size of the pie, as it were. At a project or initiative level, we recommend assessing the business opportunity in a little bit more detail, and you can use third-party data or your own internal data to do this, answering questions such as what do we expect the direct revenue streams of this initiative to be? What do we expect the indirect revenue streams to be? That might be cross-sales or improved brand perception, for instance. What do we expect the real cost of providing it to be? Does this vary for female versus male customers? And when do we expect to break even? When do we expect to return on our investment? Just have a quick recap where we are. So we've been through the top two boxes and those recommendations, and now we're moving on to the recommendations in the bottom box, which are about ensuring your new and or existing initiatives consider opportunities to reach women during all stages of design and go to market. First recommendation here is about ensuring your new or existing offerings holistically address women's barriers and aspirations in your market during all stages of design and go to market. We talked earlier about the need to understand how women in your market differ from men when it comes to accessing and using mobile technology. And once you've understood this, it's important to consider how your offering can be designed or adapted to ensure that it reaches female customers as well as male customers. And the framework on this slide summarizes how operators can approach this. The two columns here represent the activities of the business, split into two parts to keep it simple. So on the left column here, these represent the teams focused on the product and service design. So this includes activities related to the design and development of mobile products and services, such as deciding which products to launch and adapt through design and pricing, for example. The second column on the right represents the teams focused on the marketing and distribution of these products and services. And this includes activities such as product positioning and targeting, deciding which above the line and below the line channels to use, and managing the agent and distribution network. The two rows here represent the key barriers and the key aspirations experienced by women in your market. Earlier, we talked about how there are 5 common barriers we've found across markets. And you can see here how the barriers row has been expanded to show these 5 barriers: access, affordability, and so on. Overall, the framework shows how the key barriers and aspirations that women face in your market should ideally be considered at all stages of the design, marketing, and distribution of your mobile offerings. So, for example, an operator might be aware that a key barrier in their market is the affordability of smartphones, particularly for women, and how this results in fewer women than men owning smartphones. Well, this barrier should be considered during product and service design, the first column. The operator could, for example, ensure that they design their mobile money service so that it is easy to use on more basic handsets as well as smartphones, therefore making it more likely that the mobile money service would be adopted by female customers. And this example is just about addressing one barrier, but mobile offerings are more likely to reach female customers if they holistically recognise and address all key barriers in the market, including social norms that limit women's mobile uptake and use. A good example of an initiative addressing multiple barriers for women is Safaricom's low-cost smartphone offering in Kenya, which is part of its nationally digital umbrella. This offering is aimed at both men and women, but through Safaricom's efforts to address the barriers that disproportionately prevent women from using mobile internet, they've managed to ensure that over half of their customers are women. And this is really impressive in a country where women are 34% less likely than men to use mobile internet. They've focused on the three key barriers they believed are preventing Kenyan women from using mobile internet: affordability, relevance, and knowledge and skills. And you can see these barriers on the left here. And they considered these barriers in both the design of the handset and in marketing and distribution activities, so both columns of the framework. So, for example, to help address the affordability issue, Safaricom partnered with Google to launch subsidized entry-level neon range smartphones at a competitive price of $35 to $40. And these smartphones also use Android Go, which is a lighter version of Android's operating system that helps reduce the data cost for customers. The initiative also includes things to help address women's lower digital skills and the fact that they're less likely than men to think the internet is relevant to their lives, such as an information leaflet for customers on how to use the handsets, how to download apps, and how to open an email account. Training for agents to onboard women and explain the relevance of mobile internet, and local media campaigns to raise awareness of the handset, the apps and the features in a way that local men and women can relate to. So hopefully you can see the value of this framework as an approach to help you design or adapt your mobile offerings to help ensure they reach women as well as men. Our recommendation number 7 here is consider whether adapting your mainstream products could reach female customers effectively rather than developing female-specific ones. One key thing we've found through our work is that you do not have to design female-specific products and services to reach women effectively. In fact, most of the offerings that are successfully reaching female customers at scale are not designed exclusively for women, but they're mainstream, so non-gender specific. And we've found that there are 2 reasons why some mainstream products and services are effectively reaching women. First of all, the operator has purposefully considered women's specific needs in the design, for example, the Safaricom initiative I was just talking about. And secondly, the mainstream product happens to naturally appeal to women disproportionately. For example, operators are increasingly recognizing the relevance of mainstream mobile money, loans and savings and microinsurance products for women because of their role in society. Across many settings in low and middle income countries, women run micro businesses, they're active household financial managers, and they also value saving for personal and for family reasons. A good example of a mainstream product that is successfully reaching women at scale is Reliance Jio's JioPhone in India. And actually the lady in the picture here is holding one. For those of you that don't know, India has one of the widest mobile gender gaps in the world. Our research shows that only 14% of Indian women own a smartphone compared to 36% of men. Women tend to be more price sensitive than men and frequently not the decision makers when it comes to what handset they're going to acquire in the household. Against this backdrop, in 2017, Jio launched JioPhone, a low-cost 4G-enabled device that was not specifically designed for women, but addresses many of the barriers to smartphone ownership and mobile internet use that disproportionately affect them in India. As a result, Jio has brought mobile internet to millions of Indian women. The handset's available for under $10, and the phone's features are tailored for the first-time internet users in India, the majority of whom are women. The handset itself was designed to look very similar to a standard feature phone. It has physical keys and a small screen, for instance. And the phone comes with pre-installed Jio-branded content, including familiar television channels. Their overall JioPhone strikes a crucial balance between, on one hand, delivering content and features that appeal to first-time internet users, whilst on the other hand, being restricted enough to not intimidate them. And this can also be more acceptable to the husbands and fathers of female users who are often gatekeepers to their use of mobile. There are many more examples out there of mainstream products that are successfully reaching women. There are not so many examples out there of products and services designed specifically for women, and we found these tend to be more relevant in markets where women's needs are very distinct from men. And overall, there seems to be a trend of operators moving away from female-specific products and services to using other ways to reach female customers, such as distribution channels and mainstream products. So we recommend that operators consider whether adapting their mainstream product offerings could reach women effectively, rather than necessarily developing female-specific ones. And adaptations could include design changes to the product itself, or ensuring that women are targeted during marketing and distribution. For instance, if the product is believed to already naturally appeal to female customers. And we'll explore this a little bit more now. This recommendation is about marketing and distribution and the need to proactively ensure your marketing and distribution are tailored to reach women as well as men. We say proactively because operators that do not purposefully consider reaching women as well as men during marketing and distribution are likely to inadvertently exclude many potential female customers. Standard mass marketing approaches typically reach far more men than women and also tend to speak to men and their aspirations more than women. For example, women are less likely to feature as active users of the service in marketing material. Women are less likely to be able to relate to marketing messaging or even to be able to read it in the first place, given their lower literacy level. And the choice of marketing channels, whether that's billboards, events, or television, and the scheduling of adverts are less likely to align with women's daily routines and their preferences. In many emerging market settings, women are more likely than men to spend time in a family home, leading time-poor, busy lives with different daily schedules to their male counterparts. And it's a similar story when it comes to distribution. Standard distribution approaches typically reach more male customers than women. And unless operators purposefully make efforts to recruit and train women as part of their distribution networks, they tend to be male-dominated, often mirroring the composition of the customer base. So we recommend that operators proactively tailor their marketing and distribution to men. And this doesn't have to be involving creating an entirely new approach, such as a new distribution channel or an entirely new brand for women. Even small tweaks can be very effective. So, for instance, ensuring agents' opening hours align with women's daily routines as well as men's, and in more conservative settings, considering whether or not to offer a separate area for women to register. Ensuring media adverts are scheduled to suit women's daily routines as well as men's. Ensuring marketing material features both women and men as active users of the product. And ensuring that women as well as men can relate to marketing messaging. Our recommendation here on distribution is essentially to use women to reach women. In many settings across low and middle income countries, the roles of men and women are very different, and women often feel more comfortable talking to other women or are more likely to trust other women than men, especially when it comes to mobile technology. So we recommend that operators incorporate women into their distribution activities to influence and onboard female customers. And this includes, for example, female agents, female merchants, female brand ambassadors, female community groups, and female village influencers. In particular, female agents has been an important focus for several mobile operators in Africa and Asia. And there's research from various countries to suggest that they're more appealing to female customers than male agents, including research from DRC, India, Rwanda, Sri Lanka, Kenya, and Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, for instance, where over 99% of digital financial service agents are male, research revealed that only 25% of female mobile financial service users and non-users had a preference for male agents. And female agents were thought to be more trustworthy, better at maintaining confidentiality, more likely to keep data secure and easier to approach. And there's also evidence to suggest that female agents can lead to improved acquisition and retention of both female and male customers. And there's some detail about this in the report. In Somaliland, for example, Teleson's proportion of female mobile money customers rose from 17 to 24% when they recruited female agents. And one of the reasons behind this was because women were required to remove their niqab for the KYC photographs, and they were only comfortable doing this in front of other women. So the evidence suggests that recruiting female agents can be impactful and can be worth focusing on, despite the challenges operators may face recruiting them in more conservative settings. Our final recommendation is about partnerships. Partnerships can help mobile operators better reach women, and there's a huge variety of partnership opportunities out there. Operators are successfully partnering with a variety of other organisations, including other industry players, banks, NGOs, research agencies and governments. And these organisations bring their complementary strengths, their resources and their expertise to the table. In fact, for certain products, regulation requires formal partnerships. For instance, operators have to partner with an accredited institution to offer financial services such as savings and loans, which are often very popular among women. In Uganda, MTN has partnered with the Commercial Bank of Africa on its MoCash, mobile money savings and loans product. The bank already had experience collaborating with operators in other countries on similar products. And for MoCash, it was responsible for the technical elements of the design, including setting the loan interest rate. Whereas MTN, as market leader, brought its large customer base to the partnership and led on the marketing and communication activities. A number of other partnership examples detailed in the report, and these demonstrate that operators are successfully reaching women through partnering across various different activities, from design and development to marketing, distribution and general operations. So we recommend that operators consider whether or not it makes sense to use partners to reach women across each of these different activities. And we also encourage other types of organisation to think about how they can partner with operators to reach women, including what complementary skills and complementary strengths they bring to the table. The mobile gender gap is the result of a complex and diverse set of challenges, as you've heard today, and unfortunately, it's not going to close on its own. And I hope you can see from today how it's really crucial that all of us as different stakeholders work together to address this issue and realise this important opportunity. And it's only through collaborating that we can truly ensure that women are no longer left behind. So we'll move now on to any questions that you might have from today's presentation. Thank you for listening. There's a few resources here I'll just share with you first. The link to the report is here. If you're not already signed up to our newsletter, we encourage you to do so. There's the link here. And finally, I've left my email address if there's any outstanding questions at the end that we don't get a chance to cover. So we'll move now to any questions that you have. So first of all, do you have any fund to help with the initiatives with the telco partners? So I think by this you mean any financial funding to help. So no, we do not fund operators directly. We help them through giving our time and our expertise and sharing best practice from other markets. And we also encourage them to make a Connected Women commitment and be part of our commitment initiative and make a formal commitment to reach women. The question, what kind of targets should we set for financial inclusion of women in Pakistan? What kind of best practice should we follow for these? I'm not sure whether this question has been posted by an operator or another type of organisation. when our operator partners make commitments to do with financial inclusion or mobile money, they set a target for the proportion of women in their customer base they want to reach by a certain point in time. So an example might be, we commit to increase the proportion of women in our mobile money customer base from 20% to 30% by 2023. That would be an example of a commitment that an operator would make. And I would have thought another organisation as well could also take the same sort of approach and set targets on that basis. That obviously assumes that you have an understanding of the underlying gender split in your customer or user base, which in countries like Pakistan might be a challenge because men often register mobile phones there on behalf of their wives and daughters. Did you consider any negative side effects of women having access to mobile phones and how to combat such possible negative effects? That's a really good question. Yes, we have. And we do realise that mobile technology can be a double-edged sword. And there are certainly lots of downsides that women have reported from using mobile phones and mobile internet. As I mentioned earlier, safety and security is a huge issue, especially for women. Especially in certain parts of the world as well. And this is something that we've written quite a lot about. And we also work with our operator partners to try and think about ways that they can combat this. There's some good examples out there. Vodafone Saki in India is a really good example. We have a case study written about that. I'd encourage you to read about that. This is where Vodafone Idea have a service which enables women to top up their mobile phones without giving the agent their mobile phone number, which can be used by the agent, who's normally male, to harass women. So they use a code instead. It also has emergency credit as well, and a system that you can alert contacts in an emergency if you're in trouble at the touch of a button. So we encourage our operators and also our stakeholders more generally, our non-operators, to focus on this issue. And we think it's a really important one to address. So thank you for raising that. Give me 1 minute while I read through the questions. This is a tricky one. How can MNOs harness the 5G capability to ensure it's more inclusive and sustainable? Well, I think it's just a broader question really about, technology is moving on all the time, and whether it's 5G or 4G or 3G or 2G, I think it's really important that we just don't leave women behind, especially when it comes to mobile internet. We find the gap in mobile internet use is even larger than the gap in mobile ownership in pretty much every country that we've done research in. So I think as technology keeps evolving and gets more sophisticated, the gender gaps are likely to be even bigger. And I think this is a really important issue to keep addressing. We may have almost solved the ownership gap, although it's stubbornly still very wide. But essentially, when it comes to more sophisticated services, there's often bigger gender gaps that we still need to address. A question. I like the point which said that you need your mainstream products to reach female customers. Think about that more than developing female specific ones. I think that's what most operators do. Why is it that female penetration is still low? I think it's because we've found that if operators don't purposefully think about women when they design and launch products and services and market them, they tend to inadvertently reach men more than women. if you don't purposefully think about women as well as men when you design a product or when you market a product, it's more likely to naturally just reach men. And that's what we've found. And I think that's the situation we're in, which is why a lot of our recommendations relate to things such as proactively ensure that your marketing and distribution reach women as well. I think that's the reason for it, or one of the main reasons for it. There's one question I'm afraid I don't quite understand. How are the last three set of recommendations different and independent of each other? Each of them recognise that women need to be included across the supply chain and distribution efforts. I think what you're saying is they're very similar, or they sound similar, and how are they different? So let me just turn to the exact ones and see if I can explain that a bit more. So the last three recommendations are: proactively ensure your marketing and distribution are tailored to reach women as well as men, incorporate women into distribution activities to influence and customers, and consider using partners to extend your reach or bring competition. I would say the first one's about marketing and distribution as a whole, and the fact that we need to proactively think about women as well as men. The penultimate one is about distribution. It's specifically about using women to reach women and how that can be incredibly impactful, whether that's female agents or female merchants and so on. And the last is about partnerships, which is a sort of a broad cross-cutting recommendation, really, because partnerships can be used at any stage of design and go to market. And hopefully, if you have a look at the report, you'll see some great examples of how operators are using partnerships there. I hope I've answered your question. Please feel free to re-ask it if I haven't. Yes, there's no such thing as a silly question, as Rosie says, so please feel free to ask away. Well, whilst I wait for any more questions, I'll just do a quick plug for our mobile gender gap report. I mentioned that there's a really great opportunity to find out about what freely available data and research there is out there in your country. And our mobile gender gap report series, which I'm hoping Rosie will post the link for on the chat, shares data and research from specific countries. And it may well be that the country that you're working in is there. So you might be able to see the gender gap in ownership and mobile internet use in your market. And as I mentioned, there's a number of other organisations that have freely available research and data. And I'd really encourage you to look at what's out there for your own country when it comes to gender data. As I said, there was FII, Findex, Pew, ITU, RIA ICT, and Learn Asia. And a number of other organisations have got some really great research and data I encourage you to take a look at. I have a question for all of you if you are still willing to answer and listen to the last few minutes. I'd be really interested to know if any of the recommendations we've presented today really resonate with you and what you've seen in your markets, in your countries, and if there's any in particular that you think, yes, that really makes sense from what I've seen in my country and in my experience. Someone kindly mentioned earlier that the mainstream products one made sense to them. I just wondered if there were any more that people on the call felt really resonated with what they've seen in their own countries. It'd be really interesting to know. I think everyone's being a bit shy. Coupled with that, if there's anything you've heard today, any recommendation you've heard today, where you think, I'm going to go and address this on Monday when I go back to work next week, I'm going to take action on this. It would be really interesting to know that as well. You've got 2 minutes left for any more questions as well. want to also thank you all for joining today. It's been great to have such a variety of people on from such a number of different countries. Thank you for your time as well. I'll just wait for another couple of minutes in case there's any more comments or questions. You're welcome, Joe. Thank you, Jolene. That's a lovely comment. Thank you. I would also encourage you to have a look at the report, especially if you'd like to find out more about examples of what operators are actually doing. We didn't have time to cover a lot of the examples today, and it's got a lot of really rich examples in there. So I would encourage you to have a look at the report and read about those. Thank you for your comments and your time. We've come to the end of the session today, and I want to wish you all very well at these uncertain times, and thank you for sharing your time with us today.